Welcome back to Doors and Hardware. Today we're going to be installing a welded hollow metal frame. My name is Corey Rogers. I'm an instructor with the Carpenters Union, and this process is all about hollow metal frames, installing in a metal stud framed opening just like this. There's a few different ways of doing it, but I'm going to show you one way, the way we do it here at the training center. First off, the apprentices are going to be having a floor plan of this mock-up area. And they're individually going to have their own rooms with their own doors. They're going to install everything themselves with the guidance of the instructor. As well as they're going to have a hardware schedule that pertains to that room, that specific door. So in this case, this opening right here behind me, that's the opening that we're going to install. So what door number is this opening right here?
107B.
Okay, come on in. This particular one right here, 107B. Okay, what's the handing of the frame that I need to have?
Right hand.
Right hand frame. Okay, everything is also associated with this in the hardware schedule. As you can see right here, 107B. What it calls for in the hardware schedule is it's talking about the door, the handing of the door, not the frame. So the door is a left-hand reverse. Hinges on the left side, pulling it, so reverse, left-hand reverse, but the frames are right-hand frame. Here's my frame, laborers or carpenters, whichever, already brought it to us, okay? It does come with, from the factory, a shipping bar. So those shipping bars have already been removed in one central location, and we're gonna be using, like the manufacturer calls, like the way it should be, in my opinion, is using a spreader, okay? First off, before we get going, a couple things to kind of review. Here's the cart set up. We're gonna be using these wood metal stud anchors. This is what's gonna bend and tie onto the studs. They wedge inside the throat of the frame. Also scrap sheet pieces of 5/8 sheetrock. So before we got started on a job site, you need to verify the throat dimension that it's 3 5/8 studs, and in our case, it's one layer of 5/8 sheetrock on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to use scrap sheets of sheetrock, 5/8 in thickness. There's also a tool called a Ouija that is 5/8 and it steps up to 1.25 inches that you can clamp on in a couple locations. And what that represents is a 1 layer sheetrock or 2 layers of sheetrock. Same kind of thing. Okay. Got my drills, got my impacts, number 2s. We got plywood deck, so plywood flooring, and we're gonna say this is our finished flooring. If it got 3/4 tile, let's say, or any other sort of flooring, carpet, we're gonna need to shim our door frame up to that thickness of the thinnest flooring. So if we have concrete on one side, carpet on the other, it's right on concrete, okay? However, the head still would have to get shim level. Does that make sense? Okay. We got an alcove like this. In real life, the heads would all need to be leveled together, so they all to the eye look level. You'd have to find a high point, and everything gets shimmed up to that high point. Here in class, for learning purposes, we're gonna individually stay separate, and you're gonna level to your own individual opening. Okay, all right. The next step in the process, getting started, we got a frame. So we got existing framing, metal stud frame that's already there. So I wanna make sure and verify that the opening is gonna be big enough for us to use. So from outside of face to outside of face should be 3'4", okay? And I like to have a 1/2 inch on both sides. Okay, ideally is to have a 1/2 inch as well on the top. So the top, the height, outside of face is 7'2". I have 7'3", which is a little bit bigger than it needs to be, but it's gonna work. The width was 3'4", and I have 3'5", so that's gonna work, okay? The next step that I need to do, so I know my opening's big enough, I got the correct throat, know the number of sheetrocks so I can actually center it in this particular opening. Okay, using these would be my next step. Gathering these, but by the way, they're back in the cabinet on the bottom. Okay, is where these are. Some of them are used, so we're gonna have to bend and make sure that they're nice and straight, as if this is a used one. Okay, we do have some that are brand new, like this, that they're all nice and straight. Okay, something that I like to do is I like to bend them out just a little bit. Then I come over here to the hinge side. So right here on the back of the hinge is a reinforcement plate, and I need it to wedge in there just above the reinforcement plate. Right like that. They need to be tight, not loose. Otherwise they actually get looser if they're loose, not tighter. Down on the bottom, so I'm gonna bend it out a little bit, above the hinge, like that, and again on the top side. So that one's a little bit loose. Bend it out just a little bit more. Right like that. On the other side, directly across from those other anchors is where we're going to apply this one. So bend it out a little bit. Get it like that. On an anchor, it has these little points to it. Make sure those points are not bent. And also make sure those points tuck right in behind this back bend. About the same height as over there. That feels good. Pretty good. Okay. Some other things about safety: make sure you're wearing gloves, eye protection, ear protection, hard hats, boots, and proper clothing. Bringing my door to the opening. Okay, just like this. I don't want it falling on my head. Okay, so I'm going to equal my fingers just like this on both sides. I'm going to give it just a bit of a bend, just enough so that it's not going to fall over and hit me in the head. Yes, I've had that happen before. Sometimes it takes learning the hard way. Same thing. Bend over, not all the way yet. We will eventually, just like that. Okay. Getting out my spreader. Spreader goes in. Double checking my door. My frame is a right hand like it should be. In real life, we'll have a number on it that should line up with yours. So it would say, like in this case, it would say 107B. Okay. The next thing, using my impact and using drywall screws, self-tappers. These are jam studs. And if you need to, we got ladders, 4-foot ladders. So right up here on the corner, right in that build-up area. Here's one. Just happened to get lucky in that hole. Down towards the bottom. Above my anchor. On the other side. And then the same thing you gotta do on the other side with your sheetrock. Since there's buildup, sometimes it's gonna be hard to get it in. But notice that I'm not all the way into the corner. At this point, I want to make sure I'm centered in that rough opening. So what I'm looking for is this gap right here being equal to that gap right there, which evidently it looks pretty centered in the opening. Okay. Now I can bend these tabs over all the way. When you bend them over, it kind of needs to be square. In some cases, you're gonna have to tap them square. There's a little bulge in the metal. That looks good. This one, let's bend it square. Got a little bulge in it. When you put a screw in, it actually flattens out and then pushes the frame over. Okay. All right. A couple things on the hinge side only. Yeah, I'm setting up my plumb bob, and I'm also setting up my level. And the level where it goes, this is a 32-inch level. Goes on the door side out on the edge. Okay, so what I'm looking for is for shimmy making this level. So right now, it looks like I can probably use a 16th to make it look good. I put it over here, which then goes on the opposite corner. I got my wrist on my knee, lifting up. Like this, nice and tight to the ground. That, once it's anchored, can get chiseled or an oscillating tool or a knife, and you cut out flush later. Okay. So tight there, looks good. Looks like it moved to the left just a little bit. So I'm gonna recenter it somewhere right about there. The next thing I'm gonna do, using magnets and jet line, I'm gonna cross string it, okay? What I'm after when doing this, so currently, I'm shimmed out right here, the thickness of my drywall, but sometimes the framing isn't perfectly in plane. All I have is about a 16th that I can move that way or this way, 16th that way or that way. That could add up to about an 8 to try to get it into plane as much as I can. Real drastic, well then the framer's got to adjust the frame. Okay, so All right, so before I go any further, before I anchor it down, I want to check it. So currently, if you look straight down on it, there's about an 1/8 inch gap there. And right about there, there's an 1/8 inch gap here. So what that means is I'm gonna bump this side that way a 1/16. And I'm gonna bring this back about a 16. And I'm hoping that right now I'm down to about a 1/16 gap in here. If I would have left it the way it was, that door after I swung it might not latch on the strike plate. So that is looking pretty good. So that's about the max that I can go trying to make it back into plank. Using a 12-inch extension, a bit extension. This also, if it's concrete, could be a 12 or 18. 18 would be better. Rotor hammer bit for a lead head. What we're going to use right here for class, we're going to use a little pan head, truss head screw. Okay. Some things to think about when you're installing this. Let's say the hole's this big, but my screw's this big. Okay. If I have my screw on this edge of the hole, the weight of the door is going to push it over. Okay, so I have it on this side, the weight of the door is helping me. Okay, so maybe think of that. If we were installing this, we wouldn't be using this, okay, permanently. You'd use a bigger ladder, is what you'd use. Okay? For class, that's what we need so we can reuse things over and over again. Bit extension. Number 2 tip. So currently, everything seems to be pretty good where I have it. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna fasten my hinge jamb. Step in on it. Bring it back. And then I'm going to do the other side. Occasionally, if you don't have room to be able to get it from this side, let's say there's a wall here, I'll try to get everything from the far side. But here, you should have enough room. And in this case, it was kind of not tight against it. What I notice is I have a gap in my spreader on that side. So I'm going to take this one screw back out. And I'm going to pull it back. And I'm going to put it in a new spot. So now, I'm tight on my spreader. Okay. The other side, same thing. Nice and level, which is good. And this nice and tight against my spreader. And like I said, if I had to, I'd get that other side all from one side. I'll do the other side as well. I like that. So I want to check my my string to see how I am. So currently I'm strings all look good, and it just works out that it's like perfect. checking it. Yeah, they're just barely touching, just the way it should be. All right, so now, done with my bit extension. I'm also done with my string line. So I'm no longer using the jet lines for cross stringing. Now, what I'm going to be checking for is plumb. They're level. I hate it when I forget this on the frame. I'm going to check it for plumb. I like plumb boss, not gonna lie, unless it's windy for some reason. You should have 1 inch up here, right on the edge. Down here on the bottom, I let it bounce on it just a little bit. I'm looking for the average. So currently, it needs to go that way about 1/4 inch. So I'm gonna put a little telltale mark right here, and I'm gonna be looking for 1/4. That's probably going to be a little bit much. Looking right here. Oh, looks like I need to go a little bit more, about a 1/16 more. So some people ask me, hey, what's my tolerance? And then what my comment to them is, if I can move it over 1/16, why don't you make it perfect? Tolerance, there is no tolerance. It is needing to be what it needs to be. So this, I'll keep moving until I have exactly 1 inch, which for some reason it's back to a 1/16. So I'll make a new mark. It might be moving back. That should do it. Currently that is 1 inch. That can't get much more perfect. So using this is a heavy gauge steel. So you need a self-tapping framer screw. Like this here. There's also little black framer screws that some people use that are like that. These ones here. I'm gonna use, just because that's what I got in my pocket, more of these panhead ones. Plus I also like the fruit ones. So I got that one. I'll do the other side. Then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna check it to see if I still maintain that 1 inch. You gotta constantly be checking, making sure things didn't shift around, which that is 1 inch right there. Okay. Now I'm going to check right here in the middle. I'm looking for is a bow in it, one way or the other. So currently, I don't see a bow in it, which is a good thing. Okay. If there was a bow, we'll see. The other side might have a bow. Then you're going to pry it apart or smash it together to try to, with the framing, to get the bow out of the frame. It's almost cheating if I go in the same hole. Jump to the other side up on the top. Do both sides and then I'll check again for plumb. Looks plumb. Okay. Then, before I go over here, I'm gonna check. So back is straight. Now I'm gonna check, see if I have, so currently I have 3 foot strong 16. Okay, so that means there's a slight bow in it. So that's a good example. I'm gonna take my hammer. You can use a hickey bar, you can use your hatchet, you can use whatever you gotta be. On this side. So I'm gonna bring this in and I'm gonna rotate it just a little bit like this. Trying to get that the frame same thing on this side. You're gonna have to get used to using your right hand, your left hand, like that. Okay. Then come back over here. Everything's on the door side. So I'm gonna check to see if I have exactly 3 feet. Which that is exactly 3 feet. Right where I want. If this was your first time in the very beginning using a spreader, brand new spreader, you should of course also be checking that you got 3 feet, which I have. And you want to look straight in at it, which I do have exactly 3 feet here. Now, lastly, we got this anchor down here. Something else is you should get in the habit of is doing 2 screws. When people are shoving sheetrock in, if they twist this anchor whatsoever, then it kind of throws it out. So you should get 2 screws each anchor, even if they have to be on the same stud. So the last thing to do, once this is all screwed off, is to take your sheetrock blocks off. Take all your tools and go to the next frame. This frame is level, it's plumb. And now it's ready for sheetrock. That is installing a welded hollow metal frame in a metal frame opening.